The issue of misclassification, Part One. Critics of the Reid technique suggest that investigators who utilize the Reid interview process, which is called the Behavior Analysis Interview, or BAI, oftentimes interrogate innocent subjects because they erroneously evaluate the subject's verbal and nonverbal behaviors that they exhibited during the interview as indications of deception. They refer to this erroneous assessment of the subject's guilt as misclassification. It should be noted, however, that we teach investigators to use the subject's verbal and nonverbal behavior as a guide during the interview process, not as the sole determining factor of truth or deception. For example, if in a child abuse investigation, the interviewer asks the subject about a specific action at a specific time, for example, "How did you discipline Marty yesterday when he broke the lamp?" And the subject responds by saying, "Well, usually when Marty misbehaves, we send him to his room for a timeout." As many of you noticed, the subject inserted a qualifier. He used the word usually at the beginning of his response, thereby not actually answering the question to the investigator as to what he did yesterday. So consequently, as a result of the qualification, the investigator will ask a follow-up question. "Okay, I understand that's what you usually do. Is that what you did yesterday?" And the subject response was, "No, I can't think about it. I'm not sure what I did." Deceptive subjects may insert a qualifier in their response to avoid direct deception, thereby causing less internal anxiety. The observation of the investigator will trigger the follow-up question, which may reveal additional information. But it's important to keep in mind that the primary consideration in evaluating a subject's possible involvement in the commission of a crime using the Reid technique is not the verbal and nonverbal behaviors they exhibit during the investigative interview, but whether or not the case, facts, and evidence support and lend credibility to their position, or whether it contradicts what they're telling us. Considering the following three case examples. Example number one, a bank teller, who we will call Susan, incurred a $1,500 shortage in her cash drawer. In describing the sequence of events, Susan stated that on the day in question, she was working as the drive-up window teller. And she said that the way things were going, I was obtaining more large bills than I was passing out, obviously referring to her transactions. So not to keep an overabundance of large bills in my drawer, I took $1,500, 11 $100 bills, and 8 $50 bills, and went over to sell them back to the vault. Mary, who was in charge of the vault, was on the phone, so while I was waiting for her to finish the call, I saw that a customer had driven up to the drive-up window. And I didn't want to keep them waiting, so I went back to the window and put the $1,500 in a side drawer in my work area. We got very, very busy for almost a couple of hours. When we finally got a break, I went into the drawer to get the $1,500 to bring it over to Mary, and when I opened up the drawer, it was empty. So I just assumed Mary had come over to get it. And I went over to confirm with her that she got it and to get a credit slip from her for the $1,500 so I could balance at the end of the day. Mary said, "I never got the money. I never had a chance to get over there." So it's just disappeared. So we're interviewing the respective tellers. One of the basic principles in conducting the investigative interview is do not tell the subject what you know. Do not tell them what information you have. Rather, ask them what happened, ask them what was the sequence of events, ask them what they did or said, and see if it's consistent with what you already know or what you've already learned. So in this case, remember that the teller said the way things were going, I was obtaining more large bills than I was passing out. So not to keep an overabundance of large bills in my drawer, I sold $1,500 back to the vault. 11 100s, 8 50s. So unbeknownst to Susan, the investigator had in his file the teller tape, which indicates at every minute what transactions or what activities they did. So he brings it to her attention later in the interview after she had a chance to tell her story. And in looking at the teller tape, he says to her, "Now I see at 7:29 you entered the $1,500 transaction to sell. To sell out, yes. Why was it at the time you bought the 2020s, which was like a few minutes before that, you just give her the $1,500 at that time?" I was wrapping it. "Okay, now your first transaction of the day doesn't occur until 11:35. There's a 6-minute gap there." "No, that's 7:35. I'm sorry, I stand corrected, $735. Well, wait a minute. The tape reflects she made the decision to sell the money back before she had any transactions. So her original story that because of the transactions, she's taking in all these big bills, that's why she decided to sell the money back, is completely untrue. The fact that she lied about that was very significant. She subsequently admitted stealing the $1,500, talked about which bills she paid, primarily utilities that she was behind, that kind of thing. Here is a second case example illustrating the principle, don't tell the subject what you know. Always be alert to the question, do the case facts and evidence support or contradict what they say? On Saturday night, John was found dead in his basement. He had been shot in the head. John worked in real estate. In fact, he had a real estate office in his home. And he had a couple of colleagues who would work out of that same office, preparing contracts, setting up showings, that kind of thing. As part of the investigation, we are interviewing several of John's colleagues, including a co-worker we will call Dennis. And one of the questions we asked Dennis during the interview was, when was the last time he had been over to John's house, either on a social occasion or to work out of the real estate office? And Dennis replied, it had been quite a while, at least maybe 4 or 5 weeks, maybe even 6 weeks ago. Now, we're interviewing him only a few days after the murder. Unbeknownst to Dennis, the police had canvassed the neighborhood and found a lady living catty corner from John who that Saturday morning was out in her front yard filming her kids playing soccer. And in the background, you can see somebody going up to John's front door, waiting for a minute, and going into the house at 10 a.m. And when you enhance the film, it's Dennis who told us he hadn't been there for 4 or 5 weeks. He was there on the day of the murder. So the fact that he lied about that turned out to be very significant with respect to the investigation. Eventually, Dennis acknowledged that he did kill John. He did shoot John in the course of an argument they had. Here's a third example. A woman was having problems with her wisdom teeth. She went to see the dentist. She said, gee, they're very deeply impacted. I can't help you. Here's a couple of recommendations for oral surgeons. Call them both. Go to whoever gets you in first. They're both great people. They'll take care of you. We'll give you something for the pain in the meantime. So they write out a prescription for Percodan. Percodan, I believe, is a combination of oxycodone and aspirin. So she takes it over to the pharmacy, which is right across the little mall area from where the dentist's office is. And when she gives the pharmacist the prescription, he sees that it's written for 40 tablets. And he questions that because usually it's written for maybe 10 or 12 because it's very addictive. So he calls over to the dentist's office to confirm that they actually wanted him to give her 40 pills. And they suggested, no. She was just here. She just walked out. That was written for 10, not 40. Well, I'm looking at it and it says 40. Well, then she must have changed it. She denies changing it. She said they must have made a mistake in the office. I never looked at the stupid thing. They made a mistake. I changed nothing. So we're interviewing her. During the interview, Margaret was adamant, as I said, that she didn't change anything. She was insistent the dentist's office made a mistake when they wrote the prescription. So as she is relating to our interviewer the sequence of events, she says, when she went to the pharmacy, she handed the prescription to the pharmacist, and he noticed it had been changed. Now that statement, he noticed it had been changed, is completely contradictory to her story. Her story is that they made a mistake when they wrote it. So if that was accurate, where they made a mistake, there was never any change anywhere. So she made a slip on her part. Her comment that he noticed the prescription was changed was really a disclosure of what she had done. She goes on to admit changing the prescription from 10 pills to 40. She has done it before with other physicians for other drugs, etc. So this is not the first time this has happened. So the key takeaway from this presentation for these 3 case examples is the essential element in assessing the credibility of a subject's involvement or the possibility of their involvement in the issue under investigation is whether or not the case facts and evidence support and lend credibility to their statement or contradict what they're telling us. Part 2 will discuss the academic research done on whether or not investigators can assess a person's credibility based on their verbal and nonverbal behaviors. For more information about the Reid technique, please visit our website at reid.com, and you can see our book, Criminal Interrogation and Confessions. Thank you very much for taking a few minutes to view this presentation.